That's me. I'd like to move recommendation 1 that council not opt into the scooter program, and I will also send the corporate officer 3 additional pieces. So staff recommendation 1, in addition to therefore be it resolved that the City of New Westminster send a letter to the Minister of Transportation and Transit advocating that the province of BC end the pilot project and bring in province-wide regulations for e-scooters with a focus on community and rider safety. Therefore be it further resolved that the City of New Westminster submit a resolution to the Union of BC Municipalities via the Lower Mainland Local Government Association echoing the call for province-wide regulations. And therefore be it further resolved that city staff work with the New Westminster Police Department and School District 40 to develop a public education campaign about e-scooters, their use, and community safety.
Is there a seconder? Yeah. Councillor Henderson, you may motivate.
Yeah, so the 3 therefore be it resolved are actually I submitted as a notice of motion, not realizing that this report was coming back. So it will probably, well, I'll pull it off the agenda, but would have been maybe in the next agenda. It's no surprise that we're struggling with e-scooter regulation and use around our communities. The province has extended the pilot project, and from what we're hearing from in the staff report is that participating in the project hasn't demonstrated any improvements, and in fact just sort of allows, opens it up for more people to ride e-scooters without sort of clear regulation. Well, I mean, other than having to ride it on the road, but we understand that that's not what's happening. So to me, I think we can't, the pilot program is set to go for another few years, and I think we can't wait that long. We need the province to come in with some clear regulation and tools for us to manage this. They're not going away, and people's safety is of primary concern. So I'm just asking for us to do some advocacy that given the results of the pilot project and that there doesn't seem to be any difference for those folks, that we just need to move to province-wide regulations. And then also do, ask that city staff work with our partners in the police department and the school district to develop a publication campaign. I don't think that most people understand that e-scooters are technically illegal for anyone, but in particular, youth fall into that category. And I think that it's really important for parents to have a better understanding of that. And if they choose to engage in those activities, ways to keep their children more safe on the roads. And so I think it makes good sense to do some public education if we're not going to be participating in the pilot. That's all. And I'm tired. I'm sorry I'm not that articulate.
No, thank you. Councillor Fontaine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a quick question and then I have an amendment. So I'm not sure if you would prefer I put the amendment first before the question, but I'll defer to. Would you prefer?
Whatever
just a quick question regarding the speed that the e-scooters are going in, and I'm just referring to the one that's close to me on the one on 6th Street. The speed that they're going in the, we'll call it the bike lane or mobility, whatever the proper or the correct term is on the mobility lane, it is just incredible, like the speed. I'm just wondering, do we have, are there speed limits in there that we are enforcing, or that, is it us to enforce it? Is it the police? I just want to clarify.
Director of Engineering.
So through the chair, are you referring to currently, or should this?
Current, yeah.
So currently, e-scooters are not permitted to be used on streets or sidewalks here because we're not part of the pilot and they are not recognized in the Motor Vehicle Act.
Okay, so just to clarify, the parts where we have dedicated, separated, I'll call them bike lanes, but like on 6, even that is still deemed to be a street for the purpose of e-scooters. So the chair of the police board is nodding, so I'm assuming that that's clarified. Okay. So the one amendment, thank you to staff and thank you to the chair for nodding on that one and getting clarity. The one amendment I'd like to put in is just a number 4, and I'll speak to it in a minute. So just to change the wording, that staff work with the New West Police Department and School District 40 to develop a public education and enforcement campaign about e-scooters, et cetera. So I'm adding the words "and enforcement."
For a seconder? Yeah, you may motivate.
Thank you. The reason I'm adding this in is I believe that with education, you also need enforcement. There needs to be some potential penalties for these e-scooters who are going down everywhere, like, as Councillor McAvoy said. But I'm looking in particular in areas like the bike lanes where, like, for example, where I live in the uptown area at Moody Park, there's a lot of seniors and they're crossing and these things are just like whipping by and there's zero, as far as I can see anyway, zero enforcement. So I'd like to add that in addition to the public education. I like the idea of public education, but if there's just public education and no enforcement, we still may get a period where there's a lot of people zipping through and going way too fast and using those bike lanes thinking that it's legal to use it. So I'm going to throw it in. And then secondly, to those who might be concerned that we're somehow directing the police department to do something with their operations. I mean, part of the motion does speak to that because we're telling the police department to undertake an operational issue, which is a public education campaign. And so this would be just building on that, but just making sure we add enforcement. So how they do it, what they do, and, you know, it would be up to them obviously to do that. But I think I would be remiss if I didn't add this in and that this motion were passed with just the public education and not with any commentary on enforcement as well.
Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, struggling because they do they do have a framework for enforcement. Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah, we can leave it to the police department to decide what that looks like. But they do have the ability to enforce, and they do. Though the approach with children and youth is definitely education, and but they do can impound scooters and offer fines.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps just quickly in response to that, I appreciate Councillor Campbell's position on putting education first, but I'll tell you, when you're 16 and you're on one of those e-scooters and you're flying out, and if somebody pulls you over and confiscates, as Councillor Henderson said, your scooter and you lose it for a week or two, it's a very valuable lesson. Don't have to do fines, you don't have to do that, but if the police every so often, trust me, the students will talk, and they have a way of talking to each other, and they know that if they're doing this kind of activity that they might lose their scooter for a little while. And that's why I think it's important as well that I support 100% public education, but I'm hard pressed to see how when you're going down the road at 50, 60 kilometers an hour in a mobility lane and you're cutting through and driving, and just hard to imagine even at 16 or 15 that you wouldn't understand or realize that that's not appropriate. So to me, the enforcement piece is important, and it's a key message from us as council to send to the police that, yes, we love you to undertake a public education campaign, but where possible, please try to emphasize enforcement as well, so that if people are breaking the law, they're doing these types of things, that there are going to be penalties and consequences for doing that. And if one of them is having your scooter confiscated for a little while, then I would highly support the police department in following through on that initiative. Thanks.
I don't see any other comments or questions, so I'm going to call the motion. I'm going to call, sorry, on just the amendment to add the enforcement element. All in favor? All opposed? It's carried with Councillors Henderson, Minhas, Fontaine, and McAvoy. No, sorry, I was backwards with Campbell, Makagawa, and Mayor Johnson opposed.